If I could go back, I would never have moved into that nursing home. And today, I'm going to tell you exactly why. This video isn't just for me. It's for anyone considering it, or already there, or for those wondering if there's more to life in your 60s, 70s, even 80s. It's for the brave ones starting over after a divorce. For the ones facing retirement not with joy, but with fear. It's for the hearts trying to heal from a loss that no one else sees. And it's for those who still believe deep down that even now, especially now, their story isn't finished. So, stick with me. Not because I have all the answers, but because what I'm about to share might just help you make the most important decision of your life. And if nothing else, maybe you'll feel a little less alone. Let's begin. It all started with a fall. Funny how one moment can change the entire course of your life, isn't it? One second I was reaching for a mug on the top shelf, and the next I was on the floor, staring at the ceiling, wondering why my legs wouldn't listen. The doctors called it a minor fracture, nothing too serious, nothing life-threatening. But to my children, to the neighbors who heard about it, to my doctor who never quite looked me in the eye after that, it wasn't minor at all. To them, it was a sign that I couldn't be trusted on my own anymore, a sign that my independence had become dangerous. And so the suggestions began. At first, they were gentle. Maybe just a little extra help, Mom. What about assisted living, Dad? You'll still have your space. I resisted. Of course I did. But over time, the voices got louder, and so did the doubts in my own mind. You ever sit in your own house and start feeling like a guest? That's what it became. Every corner reminded me of the things I used to do without thinking. Watering the plants, fixing a squeaky hinge, getting up to turn off the light without a second thought. Suddenly, every small act became a risk. Or at least that's how they made it sound. There's a kind of guilt that seeps into you when your children look at you with worry instead of warmth. When the people you love start to see you as a problem that needs solving. I didn't want to be a burden. That word, burden, it hung in the air every time we talked, even if no one said it out loud. So I agreed. I packed my things, well, some of them. Just what would fit in one room. Imagine that. A lifetime of living reduced to what could fit in 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. I said goodbye to the only home I'd ever truly made for myself. Said goodbye to my rose bushes, the ones I planted with my late husband. Said goodbye to the smell of the wood polish I always used on the floors. Said goodbye to the silence that I had learned to love. The ride there was quiet. Not much was said. My daughter sat beside me, her hands fidgeting in her lap. She meant well. They all did. And when we arrived, I smiled. I smiled because I didn't want her to feel worse than she already did. I smiled because that's what I've always done. I was shown my room, clean, beige, quiet. I nodded. I unpacked my photos, placed my slippers by the bed, tried to find a new rhythm in the space that wasn't mine. At first, I told myself this was a fresh start. Community. Safety. Peace. Those were the words they promised me. There are activities, they said. You'll make friends, they said. You won't feel alone anymore. But here's what they didn't say. They didn't tell me how the silence at night would feel heavier than the quiet in my old home. How the sound of other people crying in their rooms would echo through the thin walls. How staff would come and go like clockwork, smiling politely but never staying long enough to really see you. They didn't tell me that peace could feel like a cage. That routine, no matter how well-meaning, can strip away everything that once made you feel alive. And most of all, they didn't tell me how quickly I would start to forget the sound of my own voice because no one really asked me anything anymore. What followed was not what I imagined, and here's what no one told me. Truth number 1, loss of independence isn't obvious until it's gone. You know, they don't take your independence all at once. It's not like someone walks in and says, okay, that's it, hand it over. No, it happens in whispers, in nods, in rules written somewhere you never read. The first time I noticed it was over breakfast. They brought me a tray, eggs, toast, and oatmeal. I asked if I could have something different. They smiled and said, this is today's menu. No choices, just what was decided for me. Later that week, I wanted to step outside, just for a moment, to feel the breeze, to sit in the sun. I found the door locked. I asked the nurse. She said, "We usually take everyone out at 3 p.m. during group time." Group time. Not my time. Not when I felt like it. Not when my bones needed warmth or my heart needed a pause. It was strange, before this I never thought about how often I decided things for myself. When to nap. When to eat. Whether I wanted silence or company. They were small things. Mundane things. But they were mine. And in here, they slowly stopped being mine. You don't notice how precious freedom is until it's replaced with scheduling boards and soft reminders that sound kind but mean that's not allowed. You find yourself asking questions you never used to ask. Can I have tea instead of coffee? Am I allowed to call my friend tonight? Could I keep the light on a little longer? And then one day you catch yourself waiting for permission to live. That's when it hits you. You become a passenger in your own life. Not because you're incapable. Not because you chose this. But because the system is built that way, quietly, rigidly, without room for those little sparks of personal choice. And let me tell you, it's not just inconvenient. It's humiliating. It makes you feel small. Like a child in an adult's body. Like you've somehow lost the right to decide simply because you've aged. I know some of you might be listening and thinking, but that's just part of getting older. Is it? Should it be? We don't lose our right to choose just because we need a little help. That's the difference no one talks about. Needing support doesn't mean surrendering your life. If you're ever considering a facility, ask questions. Ask about autonomy. Ask if you can choose your meals, your bedtime, your visitors, your clothes. Ask what happens when you want to break routine. Because those things, they're not trivial. They're what make you you. And if you're watching this right now, nodding along, feeling that pinch in your chest, then please leave me a comment. Have you ever felt like a passenger in your own life? Have you ever been told, kindly and quietly, that your choices don't matter? Tell me, your voice matters here, even if it hasn't mattered anywhere else for a while. Truth number 2, loneliness can be worse in a crowd. There's this moment I still think about, sitting at a long cafeteria table, the kind with polished wood and stiff chairs. There were maybe 8 of us there. Plates clinking, spoons scraping bowls, the hum of some old radio playing something from the 70s. And yet, not a single voice. Not one conversation. Just silence. The kind that wraps around your chest like a thick winter coat. Too heavy. Too still. You'd think, being surrounded by people all day, loneliness wouldn't be a problem. That's the promise they make, isn't it? You'll never feel alone again. But here's the truth, they were wrong. Community doesn't guarantee connection. We live under the same roof, we eat at the same time, we nod in passing. But that doesn't mean anyone knows each other. It doesn't mean anyone is known. I remember sitting there that day, looking across the table at a woman named Ruth. She had soft white hair and always wore a lavender sweater. I smiled at her. She didn't smile back. Just stared past me, eyes fogged with something I couldn't name. And I thought, how long has it been since someone asked her about her life? About what made her laugh? About what made her stay awake at night? That table, that room, it was full. And I have never felt lonelier. There's a particular ache that comes from being unseen. You start to question your worth, your presence. You start to wonder, if I disappeared tomorrow, who would notice? You want to speak, but your voice feels too loud. Or too soft. Or too unnecessary. So you stay quiet. And so does everyone else. And it's not that people are unkind. No, it's worse than that. It's that no one is paying attention. Everyone's just going through the motions. And in a place like that, loneliness isn't loud. It's a low, constant hum. One you carry with you down the hall, into your room, and all the way to sleep. If you're thinking of moving into a facility, or if you have a loved one already in one, don't just ask about the rooms or the food. Ask about emotional care. Ask about community, yes, but also ask about connection. Is there peer support? Are there programs that go deeper than bingo and television hour? Is anyone making sure the soul gets fed, not just the stomach? Ask those questions, and ask them loudly, because silence is dangerous. I've seen it steal joy from the brightest people. I used to write letters, to old friends, to myself. I never sent them. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me thought no one would answer. I still have them, folded neatly in a drawer, like conversations that never happened. You can be surrounded by people and still feel like no one sees you. And if you've ever felt that way, even once, I want you to know I see you now. Tell me about it in the comments. Say as little or as much as you like. This space right here isn't for noise. It's for meaning. And sometimes that starts with one brave voice saying, I'm lonely too. Truth number 3, routines can become ruts. There's a kind of quiet that settles into your bones when every day begins to feel the same. Wake up at 7, breakfast at 8, medicine at 9, TV time, lunch, nap, maybe a group activity at 3, something with crafts or a movie that no one really watches. Dinner at 5, lights out at 8, and then you do it again. At first, it feels safe. After the chaos of aging, after the hospital visits and the uncertainty, that structure can feel comforting. It's predictable. You know what to expect. But eventually, that structure becomes a cage. The walls don't move and neither do you. You stop asking, what day is it, because it doesn't really matter. Tuesday feels like Friday. Friday feels like Monday. Time folds into itself until it's just hours. I remember one afternoon I was sitting by the window with a book. I wasn't reading it. I was just holding it. Watching the trees sway and the same staff member roll the same cart down the same hallway playing the same loop of soft jazz. And I thought, when did I stop looking forward to things? When did my life become something I watched happen instead of something I lived? It's not that routines are bad. They're necessary. They create rhythm, especially in a setting like this. But when they're the only thing, when they replace curiosity and wonder and joy, they stop serving you. They start draining you. You begin to feel like you're on a treadmill going nowhere. No goals. No surprises. Just maintenance. And that's not living. That's enduring. If you're thinking about moving into a place like this, or if you already have, don't just ask about what they offer. Ask what you can bring. Ask if there's room for you to create your own rhythms. Do you love painting? Ask for a corner to paint. Do you miss gardening? Ask for a window box. Do you write poetry? Tell someone. Ask for quiet time to create. Even something as small as choosing your own reading hour or walking a different hallway can shift your entire mindset. You don't have to follow every tick of the clock just because it's written on the schedule. Stability is good, but not when it comes at the cost of your spirit. We all need something to look forward to. A break in the pattern. A little burst of color in an otherwise gray day. Because without that, the days blur. The person you were, the spark, the laughter, the dreams, they get lost in the repetition. You deserve more than just structure. You deserve joy. And maybe it starts with asking, what would make today feel different from yesterday? What's one thing I can do that feels like me? Even here. Even now. That question still matters. You still matter. Truth number 4, medical care isn't always compassionate. I still remember the moment it hit me. It wasn't a dramatic event. No shouting. No incident. It was quiet, like most things in places like this. I was sitting in the hallway waiting for my meds. Same time as always. They roll the cart down, call your name, hand you a paper cup with 2, sometimes 3, pills you don't recognize anymore. And I asked, "What's this one for again?" The nurse didn't even look up. She just said, "It's in your chart," and moved on to the next person. That was it. That was the moment I realized I wasn't a person to them anymore. I was a chart, a bed number, a task to complete before the end of the shift. You can't fake compassion. And once you've lived a full life, raised kids, survived loss, built dreams from nothing, you can feel it in your bones when someone is just going through the motions. They call it care. But is it really? Because care without compassion feels cold. It's someone checking your vitals while staring at their watch. It's someone changing your sheets without ever asking how you slept. It's someone giving you medicine you don't remember asking for with no time to explain it. And don't get me wrong, some staff try. They really do. But when they're overworked, understaffed, stretched thin across too many patients, it shows. You start to see it in their eyes, tired, impatient, distant. And it's not their fault entirely. It's the system. A system that turns care into a checklist. A system that makes it faster to treat symptoms than to listen to stories. A system that forgets these halls are filled with people who remember everything. I remember when my granddaughter visited. She said, "Grandpa, why are you on so many pills?" And I didn't have an answer, because no one had really told me. Sometimes I think about that. How easy it is to go from being someone who made decisions to someone who just receives them. If you're listening to this and you're considering moving into a facility or helping a loved one do the same, I beg you, ask the hard questions. What's the staff-to-patient ratio? How long do nurses spend with each resident per day? Are the staff trained in empathy, not just efficiency? Is there anyone who will advocate for you when you can't? And if you're already in this place or you have a loved one who is, please find someone who can be your voice. A friend, a family member, a patient advocate, someone who can say that's too many medications or he doesn't look like himself today, or even just, can you slow down and listen? Because care without heart, it chips away at your dignity. And at this stage in life, dignity matters more than ever. You've earned compassion, not just protocol. You've earned time, attention, kindness, not just another dose in a paper cup. And if no one's told you that lately, let me be the one to say it. You deserve to be seen, heard, respected, not as a patient, but as a whole human being. Truth number 5. You start to lose your identity. They stopped calling me by my name. At first, it was small. The nurse would poke her head in and say, "Room 208, time for blood pressure." Then the physical therapist started calling me sir, but never asked for my name. And eventually, my name Robert just faded into the background. I became a room number, a bed, a case file. And with each passing week, I felt like I was disappearing. No one asked what I did before this. That I was a teacher for 35 years. That I had a garden that won ribbons at the county fair. That I once wrote a poem for my late wife that made her cry in the best way. No one knew about the time I drove across the country just to find peace after my brother died. Or that I built my daughter's crib with my own 2 hands. Strange. How a place meant to care for you can forget who you are. They know your blood pressure, but not your passions. They chart your weight, but not your wisdom. They refill your medications, but never ask about your memories. And that's the part no one tells you. You don't just lose mobility here. You don't just lose a bit of privacy. You start to lose your story. I once tried to tell the nurse about my old dog, Max. He was a border collie who used to ride in the passenger seat of my pickup. She smiled politely, but she was already halfway out the door. It's not cruelty. It's time. It's pressure. It's schedules and forms and people just trying to make it to the end of their shift. But it still hurts, because when no one remembers who you were, you start to forget too. I found myself flipping through an old photo album one day, my younger self looking back at me, stronger, laughing, holding my wife's hand, and I whispered, "Do they even know you existed?" Because in that moment I wasn't sure, and maybe that's the hardest truth of all. We all want to be remembered. We all want to feel like our life mattered. So here's my advice: don't wait for someone to ask. Tell your story anyway. Write it down. Record a video. Make a scrapbook. Print out pictures and stick notes to them. Mail letters to your grandchildren about who you were, who you still are. Because you were not just a diagnosis, not just a chart, not just room 208. You were someone's mother, someone's best friend, someone's once-in-a-lifetime love. You're the sum of every choice, every heartbreak, every risk you ever took. And if no one else asks, I will. Who were you before this? Tell me. Because you're not invisible. You're not forgotten. Not here. Not now. Truth number 6, freedom is worth fighting for, even at 80. There's a woman here, let's call her Joan. She's a few years older than me, but she's always had that spark in her eye. You know the type, right? The kind who's lived through wars, through heartbreaks, through decades of life, and still, there's a fire in her. But after she had a fall, Joan ended up in the same place as me, the nursing home. She was a tough cookie, always full of stories, laughter, and strength. But I could see it in her eyes. The same thing that started to happen to me, it was happening to her too. That slow, gradual fading away where no one remembers you and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. But then one day, everything changed for her. Joan was in the dining room quietly stirring her soup when her daughter came in to visit. I'll never forget it. She said, "Mom, why are you still here? The question was simple, but Joan sat there for a second like she hadn't thought about it before. She looked around at the sterile walls, at the nurses rushing by, at the hollow faces of the residents who had long given up. "I don't know," she finally whispered. "Maybe because I thought this was the only option left." Her daughter was stunned, and so was I, but then she said something I'll never forget. "You have a choice, Mom. You always have a choice." And that was it. Joan made the decision right then and there. She left. Just like that. Now she lives with her daughter. She's got her own room. They redecorated it with all her old trinkets, flowers on the windowsill, a chair by the window for reading, and yes, even a little kitchen where she bakes cookies with her grandkids. You should see her now. She's glowing. Not just from the sunlight in her new room, but from something else, her independence. Joan got back what she thought she had lost. She didn't have to settle. She didn't have to fade away surrounded by walls and strangers. She found her way out. And you can too. You see, it doesn't have to be a nursing home. There are options out there that don't feel like a prison. Assisted living, living with family, even hiring in-home help. Sometimes the best solution is the one that isn't the default option. Freedom, it's something we all take for granted when we're younger. But at 80, at 90, it's more precious than ever. We have every right to fight for it, to hold onto it. We shouldn't be forced into a situation just because it's the easiest thing for someone else. Explore your options. Don't settle because you feel like you're too old to make a change. Just because you've lived a long life doesn't mean you should lose control of it. Look, I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad for staying in a nursing home. Everyone's situation is different. But I want you to know that there are options. You don't have to settle. If you're thinking of making a change, talk to your family. Ask about other living arrangements. Find out about assisted living communities. Ask for help at home. And if you're already in a place like this and you feel stuck, reach out. There's no shame in asking for help. You have the right to live the life you want, as independently as you can. Joan reminded me of that. She reminded me that no matter how old we get, we are allowed to fight for the life we deserve. And sometimes that means walking out the door. Freedom, it's worth fighting for even at 80. Maybe even especially at 80. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If any of this resonated with you, I want you to share it. Talk about it with someone who might be going through the same thing. Leave a comment. Your voice matters, and you're not alone. Let's make these conversations louder. Let's start discussing what so many of us feel but don't know how to say. If you're on this journey of starting over, whether you're in your 60s, 70s, or even 90, you belong here. You're not too old to change, to rebuild, to find peace, or to chase your passions. Subscribe to this channel and let's walk this road together, because it's never too late to begin again. And remember, the end of one chapter is just the start of another. Your story isn't over.